What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Blackshirt Alert Show. I am your host, TK. Along with me, as always, is Greg.
Hey, everybody.
Greg,
Yes,
good
sir.
game, but at the
Yeah.
same time, disappointing game.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, man. Couldn't agree more. Kind of gave one away, didn't we?
Greg, we handed it to him on a silver platter.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
I will say this, Greg, the better team doesn't always win, and Nebraska was clearly the better team.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're a lot more physical team. They clearly outplayed them. And we made some key mistakes that just completely handed them that game. And I would assume that Iowa fans would agree with that. So,
Greg, let me throw this out there, okay?
yeah.
Time of possession, okay?
Yes, sir.
Nebraska had 36 minutes. Iowa, 24.
Yeah, we dominated the offensive side of ball possession.
Yes. Here's another. First downs. Nebraska had 22. Nebraska moved the field up and down on what many believe to be a good Iowa defense, but suspect at best, as we saw.
Sure.
Iowa had 10 first downs, Greg.
And what was their third down version?
0 and 9. The Blackshirts came to play.
Absolutely.
When you are the number 4 team in the country and you only muster 250 yards against what many believe to be a very weak defense, that tells you right there you're overrated.
Yeah. I mean, I overrated is an understatement for these guys.
Greg, Nebraska
Yes.
was one player away from winning this game in blowout fashion.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
I don't know what was up with Tommy. Very disappointed with how he played. Extremely disappointed. I don't think there's anyone more disappointed than himself. Honestly, Greg, I think he feels like he let down the entire Husker Nation.
yeah, no, I think he does, and he's taken responsibility for the way he played, and he's came out and said that 2016 is going to be completely different, and I take him at his word, and I think they're going to fix the problems, but Trev, that interception he threw where we were down on I don't even we were within the 5-yard line, and he threw it. And that Iowa guy grabbed it, he didn't throw it high enough. That's just a fluke play, man. Trav?
Greg, my thing is, and we always try to not rag on the players because it's not fair. They're just kids; they can't really defend themselves. It was a bonehead play, and really, he just made a bunch of bonehead decisions. And we've talked about this before. He struggles making smart decisions when the game's on the line and he's got the ball in his hands. Is he a playmaker? Yes, at times, absolutely, he's a playmaker.
Yes.
The problem is he thinks that he has to be the hero. I don't think he trusts the other 10 guys around him.
Right.
I really don't. I think when the pressure's hot, he feels like he's the only one that can truly make a play. And a team does not think that way. Is he a leader? Yes, he is the leader. He's the leader of this football program. But I think what we saw is, the quarterback position, I think, is going to be wide open, especially when you have a, highly rated quarterback coming into this program and, Patrick O'Brien, who's been in, a pro-style offense, West Coast. He is more... His skills suit the offense better than what Tommy does.
Right. Yeah. No, I
And
would agree with that. Go ahead.
I think we're going to have an open competition, especially this spring, between him and, you know, Patrick O'Brien. And the reason why I say that, Greg, is, you know, Tommy kind of won this. He won this job pretty much by default.
Right.
All the other quarterbacks on our roster, suspect at best. You know, we have Riker 5, who we saw what he could do. I mean, he played good against Purdue, but again, costly interceptions. And anytime you turn the ball over, you know, it's hard to win. It doesn't matter if Nebraska was to play the New England Patriots and they turn the ball over 4 or 5 times. Like, you just can't turn the ball over. You just can't do it.
Travis, speaking of Riker 5, I'm not trying to change gears on you, but I just got to give a quick shout out to Riker because he went to visit my mom while she was at her mother-in-law in the hospital. When they went to the hospital the day before Thanksgiving, and my mom hung out with Riker for a little bit. So he's a cool dude. Trav, I think Tommy just he depends on Westerkamp a lot, and I think sometimes he will throw questionable passes because he has so much confidence in Westerkamp. Trav.
Greg, the thing with Tommy is, okay, and you'll hear a lot of Iowa fans try to claim that, you know, where's the credit for Iowa? Iowa didn't do anything special. When you have a quarterback that is throwing in triple coverage, that is not Iowa being good. That is Nebraska playing stupid. That's really what it boils down to.
Trev, help me make sure I understand this right. The supposed best Iowa team of all time beats one of the worst Husker teams of all time by 1 touchdown?
Pretty much, Greg.
That just doesn't make sense.
And Greg, I'll be honest with you. The main stat that matters is scoreboard.
Sure.
But everything else, Nebraska dominated that game. I'm going to be honest with you. Nebraska wins that game 9 out of 10 times.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Completely. I mean,
we physically beat them. We were faster, more athletic. The difference, the only thing that was different is turnovers.
Trav.
And it's, Greg, it's sad when the turnovers are by one guy. And like we said, you know, he tried to make plays, and you can't do that when you're a team. You don't rely on yourself, you rely on your team. You got to trust the players around you and not just think that you have to be Superman. Another player for Nebraska that really plays a lot like Tommy, and I hate to say this comparison and, you know, be disrespectful, because this, who I'm about ready to compare him to, and we've kind of compared him on the show before, is not very popular among Husker Nation, but Joe Daly. I mean, he was an absolute turnover machine because he thought that he had to throw downfield all the time, double, triple, even quadruple coverage. And Tommy does a lot of those same things. Tommy's a better quarterback by far, better leader, but he still thinks that he has to make the play, that he's the one that, you know, is the only man that, you know, the team can call out when the game's on the line. The problem is, Greg, this game was never really on the line for him to have to make these critical decisions and big plays. He never should have been having to scramble around for his life and fling the ball downfield for interceptions. Throw it out of bounds.
Right.
Don't take 12 and 15-yard sacks. Don't throw into triple coverage. I mean, Greg, his balls were never even on point.
Right.
That's the thing. It's nothing that Iowa was doing. Iowa was just sitting in zone. And he would just throw the ball, and it would be 10 yards away from the intended receiver right into an Iowa defender's hands. It's just boneheaded decisions that I'm sure he would love to have back. And I hope he bounces back. Hope he has a great spring. I hope he wins the starting job next year. I just don't know if it's going to be as easy as it was this last time.
And I just have to say the Blackshirt Alert Show will be covering, the spring practice coming up. And I think you're right, Trav. There might be a showdown between, O'Brien and Tommy.
And
I mean,
Greg,
what is that? Is that realistic? I mean,
it's very realistic, and here's why. And it's nothing against Tommy, okay? You have a head coach that already has heat on him, okay?
Yeah.
When he got this job, I don't know of a single guy that I talked to that was excited about this hire. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I think it's a neutral mindset, okay? The problem is he's already got so much heat after a season that shouldn't have panned out the way it was. Like, this season should never even have happened the way it did. We should be minimum, we should be 9 wins right now. Just because of the schedule, who we played. I mean, great. All of our toughest games, think about this. Other than Minnesota, okay? Mm-hmm. Who were our toughest games? Wisconsin, home game. Northwestern, home game. Michigan State, home game. Iowa, home game. And you win only one of those games?
It's a serious problem.
Some of those teams, like Iowa, we outplayed.
Right.
You look at the stats, we were the better team. So,
oh yeah,
Riley's already got heat on him, and the reason why Patrick O'Brien has a shot at really starting is because he's got to get this kid ready, because once Tommy's gone, and you don't have a quarterback with any experience, and it's year 3, and you struggle, you're out the door.
Yeah, totally. O'Brien's supposed to be the QB of the future, Trav. He's supposed to be very smart. From what I understand, decision-making skills are exceptional.
I've heard great things about him. I've heard that he can make all the throws. He's got a strong arm. The only thing that I'm concerned about is if we do start him, we are risking another 5-7 season, Greg. Because anytime you take a kid right out of high school, throw him in there, few times do they ever perform at a high level. They're few and far between. So the reason why I say he's got a chance to, take on Tommy and possibly beat Tommy for the starting position is because once Tommy's gone, you got to have a quarterback that has a lot of experience. Otherwise, you're risking another possible dismal season. And you got Mike Riley, who's 62 years old, I think, Greg?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much football he's got left in him. I mean, Tom Osborne retired at 59.
Right. Yes, he did.
So, how much more football does Mike Riley have in him? And if it's a lot, if he wants to continue to coach, and I think he does, he cannot accept another season like we had and then start his 3rd season with a brand new quarterback that's only taken a few snaps. So I think Tommy may very well start the season as the starting quarterback, but I think we're going to see a lot of Patrick O'Brien because we've got to bring him along. We got to throw him to the Wolves, and when O'Brien's ready, he's going to be leading the Wolves, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Trav, can I make a quick comment to the Iowa fans?
Sure.
Guys, love us, hate us, troll us, do whatever you got to do. But the death threats have to stop.
Greg, we had to call the cops on a couple of them.
Yes.
Some of them just went too far.
Yeah. So, like I said, you want to troll us, that's fine. We're big boys. You want to hate on us, great. Want to criticize us, Bring it on. But stop with the don't go overboard, guys.
Greg, with that said, may I tell you something?
Absolutely.
Greg, after the game, I was upset. I admit it. I was upset. We outplayed an overrated Iowa team who's going to get embarrassed by Michigan State.
Right.
And I got to be honest with you, man. After that game, I was sick to my stomach. I went into the bathroom. I took an Iowa. I felt a whole lot better.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, it went right through me. It was like I had Mexican food.
Yeah. Yeah, you always feel better after an Iowa.
With that said, Greg, I think we've covered the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked enough about that, and I think the bottom line is we beat ourselves.
We beat ourselves.
Iowa didn't beat us. We beat ourselves. Absolutely.
Greg, another thing I want to talk about is a couple former alumni have kind of been moving up in the world.
Yes, sir.
We got Zach Taylor down in Miami with the Dolphins. He's now the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
Pretty interested to see how that goes. And, you know, one thing about Zach Taylor is I always liked him. He's, you know, kind of led the team during the Callahan era. Very productive quarterback. I wouldn't say, I think he was a good quarterback. Not great, but he was very productive. Loved what he did. Probably one of the better quarterbacks we've had in the last 10 years, easily. And it's just it's good to see, you know, former players coaching, moving up the ranks, because it gives you a chance to follow them after their careers are done at Nebraska.
And absolutely. And the big dog. Let's talk about the big dog.
The big dog, Scott Frost, becoming the new head coach at University of Central Florida. I'm pretty excited for him, man. I'm very excited for him. Scott Frost, one of my favorite Huskers of all time.
Oh, man, he played with such intensity, man. He just dropped the shoulder and just hit.
Greg, he was a linebacker playing quarterback.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I still, you know, watch games of him just because of how he played, you know? And when you see this quarterback that's, you know, 225, you know, 4'6", running right downfield, and he's going up against a linebacker and lowers his shoulder and the linebacker tipples over, that's a hell of a football player. Another thing that, you know, I'm just really impressed with is, you know, he started out at University of Northern Iowa, I believe, a Division II, as a defensive coordinator. You know, he originally started out as a graduate assistant in Nebraska, then went down to Kansas State under Bill Snyder. But really impressed with, you know, his knowledge on both sides of the ball. This is not a guy that's just dedicated to one side. He knows defense. I mean, hell, he played it in the NFL. He's a safety for the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Right.
Then, you know, he's also been, you know, he was a successful defense coordinator, very successful offensive coordinator. So this is, you have a coach, you know, down in Florida surrounded by talent, and he knows football inside and out. There's not a thing that this guy doesn't know. And like he said at his press conference, I don't know if you watched it, Greg, I highly recommend you do it. We'll even include a link. You know, he's very humble. You know, he's not a prideful guy. If there's not a question, if there's a question that he doesn't know the answer to, he's not afraid, you know, to call Tom Osborne, Chip Kelly, you know, whoever. And, you know, they'll have the answer. So he's not a prideful guy. He's very humble. And honestly, when I heard the news, I thought it was a fantastic hire for University of Central Florida.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Trav, tell us, what does this mean for Nebraska and the future prospects of Scott coming back home?
Well, Greg, I've talked to a few former players, as you have as well.
Yeah.
And, some of them still keep in contact with, Frosty, as they call him.
Yep.
And they've told me, I'm sure they've told you, Nebraska is his dream job. Like, that's the goal. Coaching at Nebraska is his main goal. Like, that's his dream job. Do I think that this is a stepping stone for him? Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. I think he knows. And, I'm not saying that this is his deciding factor for, becoming a head coach right now. I don't know. I'm just saying the timing of him becoming a head coach and everything, it bodes well for Nebraska. Now, I'm not saying that, Mike Riley's going to fail and here comes Scott Frost, save the day. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is Mike Riley is 62 years old. I can't see him, coaching for another 5, 6 years. I don't see it. What I do see is, him being here maybe 3, 4 more years. He really wants to just establish a winning program, tip his hat off and say, you know what, I got that train started. I think that was Mike Riley's goal. I really do.
Oh, totally.
So you got Frost now that's getting into the head coaching. He wants to get that head coaching experience. He's at a place, he was at Oregon, recruited all the West Coast schools, California, Oregon, Arizona, all the big populated cities around there. So he's got recruiting lines on the West Coast. Here you have him down in Florida, hotbed for recruiting. This just bodes well for Nebraska, because Nebraska kind of lacks getting those West Coast kids, those Florida kids, and you have Frost that, is now coaching down in Florida, can get those players, and if, by some chance he does become the head coach at Nebraska, he has those pipelines. And one thing that people need to realize about Frost is, while Chip Kelly was the head coach at Oregon, Helfrich never called the plays.
Right.
He was offensive coordinator, yes, but Chip Kelly was the play caller. When Chip Kelly left, Frost was calling the plays. Frost knew the offense better than Helfrich. He just wasn't ready to be head coach. And Helfrich, I think Helfrich is a hell of a coach. I really do. But I just think that Frost wasn't ready. He's way too green.
Right.
So Helfrich automatically, just got the job. But Frost knows the offense better than Helfrich.
Trav, I talked to a former player this week. I can't say who, but he told me that Scott knows that he needs a head coaching gig before he can come into Nebraska. Well, I don't think Nebraska's going to hire another head coach without head coaching experience, because they don't want to go down the Bo Pelini road again. So I look at it as Frost getting a head coach at the spot where, he's going to be able to do good, and give it 3-4 years, he can slide right in here. Am I wrong?
Greg, I don't think you're wrong. And I don't want this to be interpreted as me and you rooting against Mike Riley. We're not.
No. But he's 60, like we mentioned earlier. He's getting up there in age, and he's
most
obviously
coaches are retiring at his current age.
Right.
It's a stressful job. Coaches like Joe Paterno, where they coach into their 80s, the Bobby Bowden down at Florida, Snyder down in K-State, these guys are few and far between.
Right.
I don't see Mike Riley taking that route. I don't think he wants to coach well into his, 60s. I think that he took this job because he wanted to have a run at just being successful, having, the height of success that he had down at Oregon State. When Oregon State had a couple good years, I think he's trying to achieve that. He wants to hang his hat on it and then say, you know, I coached in Nebraska. And I hope it happens. I do.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, if it doesn't, hopefully Frost has some good years. Because here's the thing. All this means jack unless Scott Frost pans out down in UCF.
Right.
So if Frost goes down there and they continue to struggle for, you know, 2, 3, 4 years, whatever, he's not coming to Nebraska because Nebraska won't even take him.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this as a slight of Scott. I'm just saying that's the business. That's the business side of college football. So I think Frost knows that if he wants to be head coach at Nebraska, he's got to get head coaching experience and he's got to be successful. So I think there's going to be a lot of Husker fans that are going to be watching, you know, UCF and see how, you know, they do. I'm going to be following just because I'm a fan of Scott Frost. I followed him while I was down at Oregon. I watched Oregon games, and I'll be, you know, I'm a UCF fan now, and he's got his work cut out for him. I mean, they were 0-12 this year.
I think, and you know what, Trev? Call me crazy. Going 0-12, that's terrible. Scott Frost comes in, let's say they win, let's say they manage to win 2 or 3 games next year, 4, 5, that's going to make Scott look really good.
If he wins 3 or 4 games, I don't think that makes him look good.
I think it does.
I think if he goes bowling, wins 6 games and goes bowling, that's going to make him look really good. And let's say the year after that he wins 8 games. You're already going to have top BCS teams coming for him. It's just the way it is. And, you know, I've heard rumors, and these are rumors, like I'm telling you right now, they're not true, that, you know, Frost doesn't even want to come to Nebraska. He's still upset about, you know, how the fans treated him during the 96 season. That is a complete and utter myth. I've talked to, like we said earlier, we've talked to former players that played with Frost, that still talk to Frost today. He wants to be the head coach at Nebraska. He wants to run a program like Osborne. He wants, and I'm not saying he's going to be the next Osborne. That's ridiculous expectation. I'm just saying he wants to kind of, you know, he wants to put academics first. He wants to run a clean program. He wants, you know, he's all about integrity.
Yeah.
That's the way he you know, he said even at his press conference, you know, he's going to run a program like, you know, Chip Kelly did, like Tom Osborne did. You know, it's not just about football with him. It's about life.
Trap.
Yes.
He wants to make Nebraska great again.
Yes, Donald Trump, he does. No, but seriously, he really does. And I hope it works out, man.
Well, you know, obviously we want Scott back home. You know, we've made that clear, as have many of the guests. And the funny thing is, we started this season, we were kind of not so much thinking that Scott was going to be a good fit. And after we talked to some of the players, we kind of came around on the idea.
We did. And Greg, you know, here's the thing. I think, you know, like we said, you know, the goal is to be head coach in Nebraska.
Right.
He does not hold any animosity towards Nebraska for, you know, what happened in 96. However, he is upset that when we did do the last search, he didn't even get a phone call.
I heard on 93.7 today that Scott wanted to come in 2010 to be the offensive coordinator.
Right.
And Bo wanted nothing to do with it. This is what Sam McEwen said on 93.7 today. Bo wanted nothing to do with it. Bo would have brought him in as the quarterback's coach, but Scott wanted to come in as the offense coordinator.
I can pretty much see that as being a fact. There was talk about how, you know, Scott Frost and Beck were going to be co-offensive coordinators, but Beck was going to be the main play caller. And for Frost, that just was not going to be acceptable. And I think looking back now, it was a mistake for Bo to make that decision. If you take Scott, bring him in, he's running the Oregon offense. everyone's happy. We would have a prolific offense. You'd have a hell of a recruiter. Here's the thing about Scott Frost. When Chip Kelly wanted a high-profile recruit, who did he send? Scott Frost. Frost is an awesome recruiter.
Right,
One
totally.
of the top recruiters in the nation, and now he's down at UCF in Florida. He's going to get good players.
He's going to win games down there.
Greg, rather he ever comes to Nebraska or not, I'm a fan. Totally. I will watch him. Just because I love everything that he did while he was at Nebraska. I love the way he played. And when you listen to him, like, anytime he talks about Nebraska, he raves about it. He loved his time here. Was the 96 season maybe a little tough? Yeah, it was. But look what he did the very next year. Had one of the best seasons ever. In fact, statistically, up to that point, Greg, he had better stats than Tommy Frazier.
Yeah.
Like his senior year, way better than Tommy Frazier. Not saying that he's a better quarterback, just saying statistically, like he shut his critics up. And that's what football's about. Are you going to get criticized? Yeah, you're going to get criticized. What are you going to do about it? You shut people up. How do you shut people up? By playing the best of your abilities. So, I'm super happy for Scott.
Trev, in here. I know we've kind of talked a lot about tonight, but let me ask you this question: What is your outlook on the bowl game here? I'm hearing maybe the Foster Farms Bowl against UCLA.
Greg, I'm hearing that we're probably going to go to, like, it's pretty much confirmed we're going to a bowl game. Like, there's just not enough teams with 6 wins or more, so we're going bowling. And
I also have to say, I don't know if you heard that. I'm sure you heard this. The coaches are not going to get their bowl, the additional pay, the bonuses.
Right.
And I got to kind of applaud Mike Riley and the staff for stepping up and doing that.
Yeah, man.
Because,
Greg, they didn't earn it.
They didn't earn it.
You get paid to do a job, and do we deserve to go bowling? Absolutely not. Will I take a bowl game? Absolutely. We need those extra practices.
It's about the practices, man.
We've heard Kenny Bell, and I'm a big Kenny Bell fan. You hear Kenny Bell say, Nebraska shouldn't go bowling. Well, that's just, we shouldn't, but we need the bowl game. We need to go to a bowl, get those 18 extra practices, get younger guys, more experience, more time with the system, more time with the coach. There's nothing bad about going to a bowl game. There's not. So, I don't care where we go as long as we go to a bowl game. I really don't. I've heard Pinstripe Bowl as well.
Yeah. Pinstripe Bowl, Foster Farms Bowl, UCLA. CBS Sports is saying playing Air Force in the Armed Forces Bowl. So,
honestly, I would love to get Air Force and just kick the shit out of them and just end the season on not a high note, but a decent note.
Right. SB Nation saying the Quick Lane Bowl against Duke. So I'm sure it's probably going to be one of those. And then the Pinstripe Bowl. It'll probably be one of those. Trev, I don't care. I don't care if it's the toilet bowl as long as we can get 15 more practices.
Yeah, I agree, man. We have to build momentum going into the next season, and here's the crazy thing, Greg. Think about this. Let's say we go to a bowl game and we lose. We're 5-8. No matter what we do, win or lose, we're still below 500. That is crazy.
Unthinkable.
And here's what I'm pissed off about this season. There's no excuse for it. There's no excuse for this team with this talent to be 5-7.
It turned out to be some transitional year. I mean, but it didn't have to be.
Absolutely not, dude.
Yeah. Didn't have to be this way.
And Greg, here's the funny thing: the last 3 games we played, the defense played really well.
Right.
And this last game, they played lights out and still ended up losing.
Trav, it's been a long season.
It has.
The season from hell.
Yeah, Greg, it's one word to put the season, and we use it a lot. Frustrating. This is a frustrating season. I wanted to pull my hair out.
Yeah.
With that said, Greg, I mean, I'm pretty sure we covered everything, man.
I think we've covered everything. Tommy was out on Instagram saying he's back saying the us against the world thing. People are kind of worked up about it. I don't think he was meaning us against the fans. He's talking about us, Husker Nation, against the world. Just wanted to throw that out.
Greg, we've had, players on, they always say, don't scrutinize players and everything. And I agree 100%. But, when you play football in Nebraska,
yeah,
okay, this is not Temple, okay? This is not Maryland. This is not Rutgers. This is not
Iowa.
This is not Iowa.
Right.
Okay? Football reigns supreme in this state. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely.
What players need to understand is why they shouldn't be scrutinized by fans. They still have to expect that they're held to a higher standard. And Greg, we've talked a little bit about this. With the last game when we beat Rutgers, you're home not even 30 minutes and you're already throwing a party. What the hell is that?
Ugh.
So, if the players want more respect from the fans, they have to start respecting the game. And you do that by dedicating yourself to the game. You practice accordingly. You prepare accordingly. You don't throw a party once you get off the plane 30 minutes later at your house and celebrate a win over Rutgers.
And then have questionable people over committing questionable acts. Yeah, it's a mess, bro.
So, I want these players to understand that when you come to Nebraska and you're offered, thousands of dollars to play, because that's what a scholarship is. It's, up to almost $2,000 per player for an education. And you do that because you're playing football, okay? So it's a free education because of one skill, and that is football. You possess a skill that the university likes, football. You're good at football. So don't go throwing parties. Don't go celebrating after Rutgers when you get off the plane 30 minutes later. You play football. You dedicate yourself to football and school. And then once the season's done, throw a party. Have fun. Go nuts. But when it's football time, it's football time. That's just the way I feel. Greg,
no.
When you played football in high school,
yes,
what did you do during the season? You dedicated yourself to football.
Yes, sir.
When you were done with it, what did we do? We went out and we partied.
Yes, sir.
We didn't wait till after a game, go out drinking. Some of the players did, but guess what? Those players, they didn't play. They rode the bench.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it, man. And Greg, before we let people go and, end the show, we are planning a big, big show for the bowl game.
Yeah, totally.
It'll probably be one of our last shows before the spring. We'll have like a recruiting special and all that stuff, but
I think we're gonna have to get together and do a video super show, Trav.
Greg, I would like that. We
Yeah.
we have a few locations in mind, and we'll set something up. But we have a big show plan. We're gonna try to have
Huge guests.
huge guests. So stay tuned for that.
Legends of Huskers, legends, icons of Husker football.
Absolutely. Not only that, Greg, with the holidays around, it's been hard to, get episodes out there. We're sorry about that. But we're back. We're ready to roll. Let's do this and go Big Red, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, blackshirtalert.com, Twitter at blackshirtalert, facebook.com/blackshirtalert. And keep your chin up. Blackshirt Alert Show keeps rolling on. Trav?
Go Big Red.